Good morning. I think I'm saying hello to a lot of lovely faces that I've already seen this morning, which is fabulous. Thank you so much for being here again. It's lovely. Just delighted to see so many amazing people here again today. As I've said previously, and I'll say again, all of our sessions should allow you to enable captions if you wish. So we are going to crack on with our third session of the day. We have the lovely Heather with us, and she is here today with her session on Embrace Your Quiet Strengths, Empowering Introverts Through Coaching. So Heather, good morning. Thanks so much for being with us, and I'm going to hand over to you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Heather Hill. I am a career and leadership coach, and I'm delighted to be here with you at the summit with my session today on how you can empower introverts through coaching by helping them to tap into their quiet strengths. So just before I tell you a little bit about me, and as I'm starting to bring my slides up, I'd love to know who's on the call today, who's in the audience. Are you an introvert? Do you work with introverts? Do you manage or coach introverts? And what is it that you're hoping to get from the session today? I'd love to know if you're happy to pop into the chat. And I've just forgotten how I share my screen on Zoom. I'll go ahead and do that now. Great.
We've got that, Heather. Thank you.
Thanks, Shelley. Okay. Very much an introvert and extrovert. Introvert, work with a few as well. Extrovert, working with clients who want support with public speaking. Ali, I probably could have done with some support from you before today. Amazing. Thank you, everyone. Oh, introvert in disguise. I love this. Okay, amazing. Well, good morning to all of you. And thank you ever so much for joining, whether you're joining live or you're joining on catch up. I am delighted to have you here. And I am so excited, in fact, that it is really helping me overcome my nerves, because as someone who is more introverted and naturally quieter, I would not normally put myself forward for public speaking. So please be kind, engage with me in the chat, and do feel free to hang around at the end with any questions you might have. So a little bit about me. Who am I? I'm Heather Hill. I'm a career and leadership coach, and my background is in psychology and HR. And that's really where I've developed my passion for helping people to thrive in their careers. I'm also a mum to my two incredible children, who are aged 8 and 10, and I'm based in the northwest of England, St Helens to be precise, if anybody has heard of it. So some of you might tell me you can detect a slight Scouse accent, but if you are from Liverpool, you are probably thinking, what on earth, you're definitely not a Scouser. So just to share a little bit more about my coaching and who I work with, as somebody with a naturally quieter personality type, I recognised how my quieter and more introverted tendencies were showing up and potentially holding me back at work. And I know at times it can feel like the corporate world is geared more towards extroverts, people who are more comfortable making themselves visible, making themselves heard. And that's the sort of thing that can feel really daunting for more introverted people who are perhaps more reflective and more reserved. So sometimes it can feel like we're swallowed up in the corporate world, despite knowing that we're capable, we bring value and expertise and real strength to our teams. We can often feel misunderstood, overlooked, or undervalued because we're not always visible, seen, or heard. I'm a firm believer that the key to reaching your potential is simply by being yourself. But if, like me, it's so easy to get caught up in running the day-to-day, being all the things that we think we should be, that sometimes it's hard to see your quiet strengths and what they bring. And we need a bit of help to know what it really means to be ourselves, to bring our strengths to the fore, and to build confidence in how we share these with other people so that we can make an impact, earn respect, and get the recognition that we deserve. So today I'm going to be sharing with you what strengths are. We're going to do some exercises to discover your strengths and then explore how you can use your strengths to achieve your goals. You can use these exercises for yourself. So whether you're an introvert or extrovert, they are equally applicable. Or if you're a coach yourself, then maybe you want to consider how you could use these exercises to help your clients in coaching as well. I won't be asking anyone to share anything in the chat that they're not comfortable with. I would absolutely hate that. So nobody's going to be called upon. But if you are happy to engage and share things, then please do. It will help the session along. So first of all, what does it mean to be an introvert or extrovert? And actually, does it even matter? So extroversion is one of the big 5 personality traits in the world of psychology, along with openness, conscientiousness, neuroticism, and agreeableness. Now, these are very broad dimensions of personality, but are thought to be stable over our lifetime. And we all sit somewhere along the spectrum of introversion and extroversion. So while there might be some people who sit at the extremes, typically we all sit somewhere closer to the middle. One isn't better or worse than the other, but the key is having awareness of your own preference and what you need, as well as having an understanding of the needs of others, especially when they're different to your own. So for those of you who know a little bit more about introversion, extroversion, it won't surprise you to know that there are some misconceptions about what it can mean to be introverted or extroverted. So whilst introverts might be quieter and more reserved, doesn't mean they're shy, antisocial, or timid. And likewise, extroverts can be more outgoing, more confident, or have a louder personality type, but not always. And whilst those things might be true, introversion and extroversion is actually all about where you get your energy from. So typically, introverts prefer to recharge in solitude. They are more comfortable in environments where there is less stimulation. They prefer to build and maintain relationships on a one-to-one basis. And typically they are more reflective because they process their thoughts internally. On the other hand, extroverts prefer to recharge their batteries around others. So they are much more comfortable in environments where there is plenty of stimulation. They thrive in group settings, typically having a busier social life, and often they will think out loud because they process their thoughts externally. It's important to point out that these are preferences, so we can adapt our styles to fit the environment or situation. But what that can mean for introverts is that they can exercise some extroverted personality traits to fit the situation, or because they think it's what's expected. And when that's not a natural preference, it can feel quite exhausting, especially when you do that over a long period of time. So again, if you can use the chat, I would love to hear from you. Do you consider yourself to be more introverted or extroverted? I think some of you have already added that into the chat already. And just remember that one is not better or worse than the other. We all sit somewhere on the spectrum. And the reality is the world needs both. It'll be no good having a team full of introverts or a team full of extroverts. We need a blend of both, but it's just about understanding the differences and the needs of each other. Okay, definitely introverted. Can you be both? That's a great question. Yes, you can be both. You might have heard the term ambivert. So that's somebody who sits completely in the middle. They don't identify or they don't have a preference for introversion or extroversion. They sit somewhere in the middle. And like I say, we can't flex in and out of one or the other. Okay, Cheryl, recharge in solitude, but tend to process out loud. So somewhere in the middle. Yep. Yeah, more of a mix than I first thought. Great. Okay. So regardless of whether you have a preference for introversion or extroversion, everyone shines given the right lighting. And I just love this quote from Susan Cain. If you haven't listened to her TED Talk on the power of introverts, then I highly recommend it. And I will pop a link in the chat later on. so you can listen. But what is that right lighting? How do you know what those right conditions or environment look like for you? And how do you know what you need to be able to shine? Well, that's where I focus my coaching. So I help people to understand themselves and their needs so that they can find the right lighting and shine. So how do we do that? And more specifically, how can we do that through coaching? So you can build confidence by building self-awareness, helping people to reconnect with themselves and what's important to them, figuring out what they need. And as I said before, because we can't exercise those more extroverted traits, it can be really easy to do that when we think it's what we need to do to succeed or to progress, but it doesn't feel natural. So helping people to build confidence in who they are, what's important to them, and what they need to be at their best. As with lots of coaching, we can shine a light on blind spots. So we can't always see what we're good at. And working through exercises like we'll do today, you can shine a light on the things that they might not necessarily be aware of for themselves, challenge where there might be blockers, and bring things to the fore that might otherwise remain hidden. We can reframe unhelpful beliefs that they hold about themselves or the world around them. So, for example, beliefs about being shy. If you're somebody who's being told that you were shy as a child and you've carried that belief with you through into adulthood, you might then hold the belief that you're not cut out for a leadership role, you're not able to speak up in meetings, you're not able to command authority in the way that you feel you need to progress to that next level role. So whatever that might be, it's about helping people to reframe those into something more positive. And then finally, to champion and cheerlead them as someone who gets it. When I was looking for a coach, I really wanted someone that I felt understood me and understood my style. So it wasn't about encouraging me to do things that were way outside of my comfort zone. I know that that wouldn't work for me. So to be able to champion somebody knowing that you have felt the same way they do, I think can be really quite valuable. So in today's session, I'm going to focus on strengths. So those top 2 points really, building confidence through self-awareness and shining a light on blind spots, and how we can then help introverts to embrace those quiet strengths to feel more empowered. I'll just do a quick check on the chat, make sure there's no questions coming up. No people still telling me you're an introvert or extrovert. Lovely, thank you. Okay, so what are strengths? According to StrengthScope, which is a strengths assessment tool registered with the British Psychological Society, they define strengths as the underlying qualities that energise you and that you are great at or have the potential to be great at. So I see this as the sweet spot between what you do naturally and easily and what you enjoy. So typically when you're using your strengths, you will hear people talking about being in the zone or being in flow. And strengths are different to skills. So skills are things that you can acquire over time through practice and dedication, but they don't necessarily energize you like strengths do. There's research that shows that when we work with our strengths, we are more productive, more fulfilled, and more energized. And in organizations where people feel psychologically safe and where their strengths are put to the very best use, there are great outcomes for the organization too. So if we can learn to pay attention to our strengths and tap into them, rather than trying to mold ourselves to be what we think we need to be, we will be more happy, more energized, and more productive at work. I don't know about you, but in the past, when I've done personal development plans, I've had a tendency to look at where are my gaps? How do I improve the things I'm not as good at? That's called the negativity bias. So you might look at what those gaps are and then work out what training you might need, who can you shadow, who can you learn from, what can you learn so that you can plug those gaps. I'm hoping this video works. So with a strengths-based approach, it's about honing in on what you enjoy and excel at and drawing on those strengths to feel more fulfilled and more productive, as well as helping you in areas of weakness. So the little girl on the video, she was having a go at football. You might then think, oh, she's tried harder at football to build on what she could get better at. But actually, she's shown a real strength for gymnastics. So why not encourage her? That's my daughter. Somebody's saying in the chat. So, really encourage them to focus on those strengths and the things that they are good at. So focus on the positives whilst understanding the negatives. There are lots of tools out there that can help you identify your strengths. I'm accredited in a tool called StrengthScope, which I've just mentioned, and I'll share a little bit more about that later on. But for now, I'm going to just share with you a couple of exercises to start to get you thinking about your strengths, because sometimes they are things that come so easily to us that we don't even recognise them as strengths. So taking the time to think about these things is time well spent. So it's probably not going to be a one-off exercise for you. You'll want to do the exercises today and then come back and refine it. But the purpose of today is to start to identify what you think your core strengths are, so that these can become the go-to tools for you in your career. So if you haven't already, grab yourself a pen and paper and we'll dive in. Okay, so how can you recognise your strengths? We're just going to spend a couple of minutes uncovering what your strengths are. And like I said before, these exercises are equally applicable whether you are an introvert or extrovert. So the first exercise is to come up with as many strengths as you can that you can see in yourself. Try not to overthink it. Write down as many as you can. I won't be asking anyone to share anything, so this is just for you. If you're happy to share in the chat, then of course go ahead. As you're thinking about it, maybe ask yourself these questions. What is it that you're doing when you find yourself in flow? What comes easily to you that might be more difficult for others? What do other people come to you for help with? What would other people say you're good at? And what do you think you have the potential to be good at? So I'll give you just a couple of minutes to think about that. Okay. How did you find that? Did anyone find it hard to come up with strengths at first? Did anyone find that instinctively you've jumped to the things that you're not good at? Okay. Struggling with potential. Yes. Difficult. Yes. Okay. So what we'll have a little look at now is how you can look for your hidden strengths, because often it can be easier to identify our weaknesses than our strengths, that negativity bias kicking in again. But actually what you perceive to be weaknesses can actually help you to uncover a hidden strength. So I want us to take a closer look now at what else we can learn about ourselves by taking a deeper look at something that we think of as a weakness. So for now, I'd like you to list 3 things that you consider to be a weakness. So a few examples might be a lack of attention to detail, not seeing things through to completion, and feel like you have a weakness at presenting. They're just some examples. So just spend a couple of minutes thinking about the things that you consider to be your weaknesses. Everyone managed to come up with a couple, hopefully, because what I want us to do now is to try to reframe these. So rather than seeing the things you've written down as a weakness, I want you to think about it as a trait, something that's neutral. It's neither good nor bad. And I want us to start to think about what that trait might mean. What else can you learn about yourself from it? And what is the flip side to that trait? So, for example, while you might see your lack of attention to detail as a weakness, you might actually be fantastic at zooming out and doing that big picture thinking. If you identify a weakness in not being someone who gets things finished, you might actually be really, really good at generating ideas and taking action to get things started. And if you feel that you're not brilliant at presenting, you might actually be the person in the room who listens most intently and understands or seeks to analyse what's being shared. So you will need to think quite broadly, because not all weaknesses will have an opposing strength, and the opposing strengths that I think apply might be different to the ones that you think apply. That will be different for everyone. But what else is this trait, this information telling you about yourself? So just try and spend a couple of minutes trying to think about what else is happening for you when you're demonstrating that behaviour. If anyone's struggling and wants some help, feel free to share in the chat and we can explore it together. There are lots of coaches on this call, so I'm sure lots of people will like to help each other out as well. So Nikki asks, how do you reframe being a procrastinator? So I think I would ask yourself, what else is happening for you? What are you feeling when you're procrastinating on something? What is it that you're feeling at that time? So are you feeling calm? Are you feeling that there's a different priority? So I've had before where I can definitely procrastinate on things, but actually I'm not easily flappable. So sometimes, yes, I can work under pressure and that might be a strength. I can remain calm under pressure and that can also be a strength. But I think it's what that means for you, what is happening for you that you can lean into to flip it. Yeah, Suzanne here saying she procrastinates, but to flip that, I think things through and don't rush into situations. Thank you, Cheryl. Procrastination can mean you care and maybe you need a tight deadline. And there might be something there around what is it that you're actually procrastinating on? Is it something that doesn't light you up? You don't feel fulfilled? Is it actually that is a weakness or you just prefer to spend your time elsewhere? So have a think then about the weaknesses that you've written down. And like I've just said, is it a weakness or is it actually a preference? Is it something you're not good at? Or do you just have a preference not to do it because you're energized by doing other things? And I will just caveat this and say, it doesn't mean that the things you've identified as weaknesses should be ignored. That's for you to determine. You might have a job where you absolutely have to get straight with Excel, even though it's something that you might consider a weakness. This is about thinking a bit deeper about what that behavior trait says about you and reframing your thoughts to pick out the strengths that might be hidden. So now you've uncovered some of your strengths, what can you do with them? So what you should now have is a list of strengths from the first exercise. You might have 3, you might have 23. You might have your 3 weaknesses that you've converted into strengths. And then it can also be really helpful to ask friends, family, colleagues to share what they think your strengths are and take that away with you. But for today, I want you to pick out what you see as your top 3 strengths from today. So these will be the ones that might have been repeated across both exercises, the ones that feel most aligned or energizing, or the ones that will help you in your future career vision. And just ask yourself, are you using your top 3 strengths? If not, how could you use them? And if you are, how could you use them even more? What opportunities might there be? Where can your strengths help you in areas of perceived weakness? So you want your strengths to become your go-to tools. So for example, for me, I really don't favour presenting or public speaking, and I do get the irony, but I am diligent. I make sure all my information is correct and tidy and neat. I like to prepare myself well, and I can speak confidently on topics that I'm comfortable with. So I use these things that I lean into as strengths to help me when it comes to presenting or public speaking, something that I think of as potentially a weakness. So there is a point to note as well that there can be times when your strengths can work against you. For example, if they're used in the wrong environment or the wrong context, or if they're overused. So for example, if you're someone with a keen eye for detail and that is a real strength of yours, there can come a time when it tips over and impacts your performance because you become so focused on the detail that you miss the bigger picture. So it's also about being aware of when this might be the case so that you can manage it. So perhaps it's just worth a moment or two to think about the strengths that you've identified and whether there might be any situations where they could pose a risk to your performance. And then how can you use your strengths then to unlock your potential, or to unlock the potential of introverts that you work with? So you can use your strengths to identify opportunities. Knowing our strengths helps us to identify those opportunities, promotions, or projects that allow us to spend more time working within our strengths. So if we can take those opportunities, we're going to end up working with more fulfillment and greater energy. Knowing your strengths can help to build inner confidence by really reinforcing to you the value that you bring. When you know your strengths, it's much easier to articulate what you're contributing, and you can build those into your personal brand as well. So thinking about what is it you want to be known for, what is your point of difference, what can people expect from working with you, and then how you live and demonstrate that personal brand. You can use your strengths to help sell yourself. So this is really critical during things like job interviews or your end of year performance review. So when you know your strengths, you're much better able to articulate them to others and position yourself more effectively during those key moments. You can also use your strengths, like we've just talked about, to mitigate your weaknesses. So not only do they help to boost your performance, they can help you in areas where you are less skilled or less energized. And then minimizing performance risks. So when you understand your strengths, that also includes knowing when they might work against you, such as when they're being overused or used in the wrong context. So as an example, if we think about that person who has a real strength in being detail orientated, they might really struggle working in a fast-paced environment where there isn't time for perfectionism, there's a time for progression. So being aware of that means that you can actively plan around it or seek support. So how can you apply your strengths? I want to bring to life for you today what you've learned about yourself and your strengths. So if you can just think about a project or piece of work that you're working on at the moment, and spend a few moments asking yourself, which of your strengths can you lean on now to best support you? Which of your strengths might pose a risk to your performance by being used in the wrong context or being overused? And where might you need support? So for example, if you don't have a strength in a particular area, but you know someone else does, how can they help you? Or if you have a performance risk that you need help to avoid or mitigate, where might you go for support with that? And then finally, just as a commitment to yourself from today, what is one action you will take away? Is there an area, a project, or an opportunity where you could use your strengths more? Do you want to go and learn more about your strengths? What is it that you are going to commit to from today? And if you want to share in the chat any actions that you are taking away, that would be great. Or yeah, I will make the slides available. If you are in the Facebook warm-up group, I will definitely be posting them in there. And if not, if you're not in there, send me an email and I can send them back to you.
Heather, there may be one to come back to, but Claire has said, I would love to run a session on strengths with my team. Do you have any templates you could share or advise on how best to do it?
Yes, absolutely. Strengths is a great exercise to do with a team. So Claire, yeah, send me an email. I'll bring my contact details up shortly and we can talk about that. So as you're just finalising your action to take away, I just want to leave you with a final thought before I share a little bit more. But while you're busy doubting yourself, someone else is admiring your strengths. And I really want you to keep hold of that. So if you have enjoyed today and you do want to take a deeper look at your strengths, I just wanted to share with you what you'd get as an output from a strengths assessment. So this is an output from a strength scope report, and that is the tool that I am accredited in. It's the only strengths-based assessment tool registered with the British Psychological Society. That makes it the most reliable and valid strengths test in the world. So looking at the picture here, this is the strength scope wheel. This looks at 24 unique strengths across 4 key clusters. So they are relational, execution, thinking, and emotional. And it's very much about understanding the things that energize you. So you'll see from this wheel that there are 7 long purple bars. They are referred to as the significant 7 strengths. So the things that the person in this sample is most energized by. So this wheel is a snapshot of a unique strengths report, which you could then take forward and use to take a strengths-focused approach to your goals. So normally that strengths assessment would only be available as part of one of my 8-week or 6-month coaching programs. But for the summit, I have put together an offer for people who want to take a little bit of a closer look at their strengths, to work with me just as a one-off, to get a strengths assessment and then to have a strengths coaching session. So it would be that you would undertake that strengths assessment online, and then we'll use that report together to take that strengths-based approach to your goals. And I'm going to make that available until the end of July. So if you are interested, well, my picture seems to have disappeared. You can find out more by scanning this QR code, and that will take you to my website where you can get some more information. So you might be interested for yourself, you might be interested for your team. So I know somebody else has already asked that in the chat, or you might know someone else who might benefit from some work on their strengths. So if you want to find out more, then there's the QR code to get some more information. And finally, if you want to get in touch with me, then all of my details are on here. And again, another QR code, if you want to scan that rather than copying everything else that's down, that will take you to links for all of my socials. So LinkedIn, Instagram, you can email me through that, and you can also directly set up a call with me through Calendly. And that just about wraps up my session.
Thanks so much for that, Heather. I just wanted to point out one comment that I've just seen from Suzanne. She's just put, I found this session personally, it's disappeared as I was reading it then, sorry. Personally, really helpful as someone facing redundancy. Sorry to hear that, Suzanne. I'm going to spend some time flipping my perceived weaknesses to positive traits. You're a great, really engaging presenter. So I just thought that was a really nice comment to share with you, and lots of them in the chat there saying thank you and what a great session, and really resonating with me, and really good session. Thank you so much. So yeah, so fantastic. Thank you so much for that, Heather. It's been amazing, and I'm sure, like everybody else, I'll be taking away some reflections with me as well on this one. This has been fabulous.
Thank you. Thanks
also...
everyone for your engagement as well.
I will also just going to add in, as I have at the end of every session here, just about our Q&A sessions that we have. So they're on the 5th of July, this Friday. So we've got 2 sessions, one at 9:30. It's a Q&A with Zoe about training to be a coach. And there's another one at 12:30 with Joe, who's talking about our CPD courses, emotions coaching, practitioner training, and our foundations of group and team coaching. Details of the events have all been listed in the emails that you've been sent when you registered. So hopefully you'll have the links for those, but obviously get in touch if you were unable to find them. So that's it from us now. Another session done. Thank you so much, Heather, for being with us today, and thanks everybody again for being here with us. Take care.
Everyone.
Bye.
Bye.